my guest is a partner in the world's largest law firm by number of lawyers. They have more than 10,000 worldwide. The firm operates in 75 countries, including the UK, where it has offices in London, Watford, Milton Keynes, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, and Glasgow. Michael Dean is a partner in the Glasgow office. So, Michael, how have the last 5 months and a bit been for you and the firm?
For the firm, I think it's like many businesses. We had a period where nobody really knew what was going to happen. Obviously, for the firm, we evacuated the offices in the week before lockdown, actually, and so we now have had 5 or 6 months, working from home. Everybody. So we've actually proven that it is possible, and people, although they were working flexibly to a degree before that, they've been able to do that. So that's one aspect. Is it's been fine because we've actually been able to continue, and there's been no interruption of service to clients, and so that's been good. And then of course there's the other issues around, which areas of business are going well, or others, having a challenge, and naturally enough, the economy has a big impact in that, and it varies per sector. Personally, I think it's been, I think like everybody, you have your ups and downs in terms of the normal working week, never mind working from home. But it was pretty good, actually. I'm fortunate I don't have the homeschooling type issues that many people have had to juggle many different things whilst working, whilst doing calls, whilst doing conference calls, etc., or trying to deal with documents. So it's been reasonable, and I think we're looking forward to sort of some form of normality, which I think everybody is. But I can't really complain.
Dentons is obviously a massive worldwide firm in many countries. How much independence have you had in terms of how you deal with coronavirus, or are you working to protocols that are kind of led by the group, the corporate group, if you like?
Well, if you like, the corporate group itself has had a role, I think, in initially in ensuring a cohesive morale in the firm, and a cohesive determination to continue supporting colleagues in different countries. And of course, there were some terrible things going on, in northern Italy, supporting colleagues, supporting clients, and so they've had that sort of role. Also, in terms of other necessary disciplines around, obviously everybody wants to be abiding by the rules and the law and the guidance, and that we've been absolutely on that. So that their role has been encouraging, but obviously every region has its own issues, and every country has its own issues and its own timetable. And even within the UK, we have different timetables going on.
Lawyers have a reputation for researching stuff because they have to know the parameters of every case that they look at, and I guess that approach has probably been quite helpful in dealing with how you're going to meet the challenge of moving forward with coronavirus.
Absolutely, and I think if you speak about all law firms are not the same. They have different sectors, different emphasis, different client bases, different issues, and so they've had to deal with things differently. And some law firms have been really hit significantly. Some lawyers have really hit significantly. I think 90%. The Law Society has been very good, actually, in looking after the lawyers in Scotland, and keeping tabs with them and giving support so that they can continue supporting their various clients. So one has to sort of look at it in that context. We're part of the economy. We're led in a sense by our clients and on what they're up to. But nevertheless, we need to listen to our clients. We need to be close to them without being in their face all the time. And I think that's one of the things we've been trying to do, is to be supportive, provide resource, help, be understanding when it comes to cash flow type issues and the like. We want to be in the longer term with clients. We've made a lot of resources available on our website, so a lot of information and assistance for clients. So it's listening to what they're doing, because they will lead us. That said, we are analytical as a bunch, and I had some funny exchanges with a client this morning who was telling me how lawyers can squeeze the joy out of everything. But we are analytical, but we're a business as well, so we need to respond to demand, but we need to pivot to ensure we're meeting that demand. And obviously we have to predict, as everybody is, where do we need the resource. We also need to make sure we've got the young lawyers coming through. One of the issues, I think, is, which a number of people have spoken about, is training young lawyers. Obviously, there's a whole series of matters that young lawyers get trained on. There's IT system, how the firm works, the sort of financial discipline they need, ethics, client stuff, but there's also a whole bunch of soft skills as well, which partly they should be picking up, from working alongside lawyers. And of course now it's a bit of a challenge because they're not necessarily in the same room and observing how you deal with clients. But the sort of soft skills training that you give, Russell, I'm sure, should be the sort of, upskilling them in terms of their presentation. Because as we all know, well, everybody needs those skills, to be maintained and developed. And of course, as you move into this new environment with where virtually everything is online and Zoom, and you learn over decades how you are perceived, but this is a new environment actually, which is now, if you like, the norm, and we don't know how we're perceived. So the sort of training that you've been, you're used to giving, I think would be, very useful for, younger lawyers to hear, what they need to be thinking about, how they need to present themselves, and we could all probably do with a bit of that.
Okay, imagine I'm a client. And a long-standing client, what changes, what differences am I noticing now in my dealings with my Denton lawyer?
We might be involving you in more invitations to various types of training and webinar. We want to keep in touch. Obviously, we've not been able to keep in touch by going for lunch, which we might have done of late. And it's important to keep in touch, not just to have a lunch, obviously. It's about communicating what's going on in that client's business. What are the upcoming, problems and concerns that they see that we might be able to help with? And we talk that through. So actively keeping in touch, I think, is probably what clients have perceived. In terms of the service, I don't actually think, given that most service actually was provided in any event, if you like, remotely, because obviously I'm sitting in Glasgow, but I have clients throughout the UK. I don't always see them, on a day-to-day basis. Would have calls sometimes on a day-to-day basis, from time to time, we definitely make an effort to get in front of them and find out what's going on, and see how they're doing, and see how the business is doing. So I don't think too many changes they will have found, because the service has continued. There's been no interruption. It's pretty resilient, the IT system. That's great, and everybody's available. Every resource is available. And maybe that is the difference, possibly. We've been pushing more resource towards clients.
Which parts of the business in particular have been worst affected by the pandemic, and which ones have perhaps surprised you in the sense that they've actually strengthened, maybe?
Well, I would say it's been surprising because, of course, as we hit this pandemic, nobody knew what was going to happen in business. And so not surprisingly, initially, discretionary spend by clients, was cut. So there's some projects that I was involved in that, I actually didn't need to be told or informed that they were not going to go ahead. I could tell. So that did occur, and then also for some areas you thought, well, what's going to happen with real estate? What's going to happen, with people? I think some of the busiest lawyers have been employment lawyers, obviously, because everybody has staff issues. They understand the schemes, support. You'd think insolvency lawyers would be really busy. They have been at various times. Hopefully, they're not going to be too busy in the coming year, but that might be unavoidable. It's been interesting because we've been busier than we expected, put it that way. And some areas, such as real estate, have been very busy, which is crazy. Some areas of financing, banking, finance, have been really busy, perhaps not surprisingly, given that people need to restructure the finances of, in this sort of environment. So mergers have continued. Maybe a little dip in corporate activity, but actually it's been pretty sustained. So, and of course, mergers feeds into my area of work, which is it's competition law, so it's merger clearances. So we had quite a number of those to deal with. I think I alluded to earlier that different regions have different timetable for this pandemic hitting them and how they have dealt with it. And a funny thing, early on in this pandemic, quite a lot of my work, whilst some of the projects, the competition compliance side, for example, maybe discretionary, quieting down. Other work, such as procurement, advice on labelling, importation of PPE, antibacterial. So it's quite a lot of work related to COVID itself. So actually, when I recall, the first 3 weekends of lockdown, I had to work over the weekend because there was urgent work to be dealt with, which was really bizarre. Because you would have thought things would have quieted down.
It sounds to me as if being a lawyer is about as bulletproof as it gets. You can cope with any set of circumstances.
Well, I suppose to a degree, whether it rains or shines, very often, you'll need a law firm, which is why you want a balanced practice, and it's very often it is like that. Sometimes, and we've seen it over the years. There's a boom in real estate, and then there's a crash, and then insolvency is really busy. So it's not been like that. Actually, it's not been a sort of boom bust type situation, at least not my perception. But yes, there's a lot going on, but it helps to have a broad-based practice so for most clients, you can help them with most things. Whether they're dealing with government, whether they are government, and of course we've done a lot with government in the last couple of years, and in particular the last 5 or 6 months.
Looking at the situation as we have it today, is it too early now in terms of the pandemic to be learning lessons that you can take forward to make the business stronger in the future, or are there lessons that are being learned and acted upon right now?
The most obvious, one, which many sort of similar businesses will know, is actually home working flexibly. As I mentioned earlier, certainly in my team, we were always pretty flexible. I never really bothered where people worked. So over the summer, that's been working absolutely fine. One of my team wants to go and work in Brussels, just live in Brussels, work from there, but doing work for Scottish clients. Why would I bother? It's absolutely fine. I'm very happy that she would do that. One of the other team in London, was working. We went to Sweden with his parents and worked there, and that's fine. So flexible working, I think, is and we're going to have to work that through how that will pan out. But so far, it's been pretty good, and it allows people to do more, I think, in their domestic lives as well as their work. And I think we haven't seen productivity drop, and we're concerned about well-being and all the rest of it, absolutely, and we keep in touch, make it an active effort. So that's one change. other lessons to learn. I mean, I think just it all comes down to clients, actually. It all comes down to, for us, it all comes down to clients, because you're not really going to function unless you're close to and relevant to clients and offering what they want and need. That, you know, we've seen a slightly different pattern of need over the last 5 months. That I'm sure will change going forward as well. It may revert to some sort of form of normality, but I think being flexible and being prepared to be flexible also must mean being cautious, I suppose, about allocation of resource, and maybe many of businesses will be cautious about investment as well in various areas. That said, we're just opening our Dublin office next week, actually, so there's a bit of a launch there. So we're continuing to invest and expand, so and add law firms, you know, who are joining us in the States, New Zealand recently. So a bit early to say in terms of, you know, other lessons we have learned, except that we depend on one another. I think everybody, not just law firms, but everybody knows you depend on support, or you have to give support, and I think that's been quite a good thing. So we're in it together, and you know, that makes us resilient, and hopefully that carries forward, you know, for clients as well.
That sounds like an optimistic note to end on, Michael. Michael Dean, thank you so much for joining me.
Uncharacteristic for lawyers. No, I think why not? You know, why not? I think you're right, Russell. So thank you.